Hello, my name is Rachel Shipley, and this summer I have been working on a UGROW project with Professor Sally Story at MSU Texas in the Fine Arts College. And the title of our study is How Faith and Spirituality Influence Artistic Expression. So in order to dive deeply into our study, we first must ask the big picture question. What is the nature of the relationship between art and spirituality, and why does this connection exist? So, as you can see, this big picture question can be broken down further into two main objectives of our study. The first being, determine if a connection lies between art and spirituality. Is there actually a connection there, or does it not exist? What does the connection look like? That's the first question. And then the second question is, if there is a connection, if this connection does exist, determine the factors that allow this connection to exist. What is creating this connection? Is it faith? Is it our spiritual beliefs? Is it the type of art? Is it the type of person? Why is this connection there? So first, we are asking the question, does it exist? The second question is why, and that's where we get our big picture question for the study. Now, after we have our big picture question, we have our hypothesis for what we believe we would uncover when we were researching this. And our hypothesis for the study was a connection will exist between spirituality and art because they are both forms of human expression. So we felt at the beginning of the study that yes, there will be a connection between these two things because they are both allowing humans to express themselves. So there must be a correlation between the two. So before we kind of dive into the study process and what we found, I want to define the terms that we will be using throughout this presentation and that we used throughout the study. So first, let's define what we are viewing as art. So in our study, we are saying that art is the expression of or application of human creative skill and imagination. And in our study, we really didn't narrow this down in any way. We're talking to artists who are woodworkers, who are painters, who are sculptors, who are performance artists, who are technical theater people, vocal performers, artists of all kinds. And then moving to the other side of the screen, we have the term of spirituality. So in our study, we are defining spirituality as the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. So we're saying that spirituality is being a spiritual person, and it's the quality of being concerned with the soul, whereas faith is the strong belief in God or the doctrines of religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. So the key word in our definition of faith is religion. So in our study, we're saying that a faithful person will generally be spiritual. They're going to have spiritual beliefs. They're going to be concerned with the human spirit and soul. But a spiritual person may not necessarily be faithful because a spiritual person doesn't have to be a part of a particular religion or faith community in order to be spiritual. So now that we've defined the terms of our study, let's kind of take a look into the process of how we went about finding the answers to these big picture questions. So first, we went out and we figured out what questions do we want to ask these people, and then we developed an 11 question survey. Now, while not all of these questions determine the connection, some of them are establishing the faith and the creative medium of these artists, we allowed people to kind of answer in a free response form what they felt that connection was and why they felt that connection was there and how they see that connection evident in their own art. And then from the 55 responses that we received from the survey, we narrowed it down to 5 artists with various spiritual and faith backgrounds that express themselves creatively in very different mediums, and we had virtual interviews with them. Now, these interviews lasted 10 to 15 minutes, and basically we used the answers from the survey questions as the baseline, and then we dove deeper into that connection that they felt was there, or that they didn't feel was there in their art. And then from there, we took the answers from the survey and the additional information that we garnered from the interviews, and we were able to draw conclusions on what this connection was and why we felt it existed in artists and in art. So before we take a look at the data that we did end up gathering from the survey, I want to talk about some of the notable data trends that we saw in the responses. So firstly, over 50% of respondents no longer practice the religion or faith of their childhood. I found this to be really interesting. Around 2022, so college age, we are seeing the shift away from the religion and faith of childhood into something that's new and not necessarily anti-religion, but something different than what was practiced in the childhood of the creative person. And then, secondly, we have another data trend of a significant decrease of those participating in organized religions. So we see the shift kind of away from this more structured form of spirituality to a far more individualistic and expressive form of spirituality. And then finally, another trend that we saw in our data is all of the respondents to our survey that were part of the Baptist Church as children, which is a total of 10 respondents, shifted to a different alignment in adulthood. And we kind of see this trend with the more conservative forms of faith communities. In our data, we saw a significant trend away from the more conservative forms and the more structured forms into more liberal and expressive forms in these creative people. So now that we've defined how we went about gathering our data and some of the notable trends in that data, let's begin to look at the graphs that we were able to develop from the answers to our survey. First graph that's going to be appearing on your screen highlights the demographics of the faith of the respondents that are responding to our particular survey. So as you can see, there is still a significant number of those practicing Judeo-Christian faiths, but in adulthood, we do again see that significant uptick in less traditional faith practicing. So we have examples of Wicca, but we also have examples of those who are having a combination of faiths. So an example of this could be someone who is pulling from both Wiccan and Buddhist beliefs and creating their own individual spiritual practice. So we're seeing a large increase in that, and then we're also seeing a very significant increase in those who are practicing agnosticism and atheism. So the next question on our survey really helped to present our big picture question to our respondents and help us kind of see where they thought this connection was in their art. And we did get a resounding yes, that people felt that their faith directly influenced their artistic expression, but we did receive some no's and some unsures and some depends. But I think in order to kind of highlight why we do believe that this connection exists is to look at some of the short answers that we asked our respondents to put after their answer to this question that kind of help us to see why they feel that this connection exists between their faith alignment and their artistic expression. So from respondent 49, we received this response. Growing up, I experienced a lot of death of loved ones. I would pray to understand or ask for help on more than one occasion, and my deceased grandpa told me in my dreams that everything would be okay if I kept making art. I've always had art as a kind of relief when life presents challenges. It sounds nuts, I know, but I consider those dreams a kind of spiritual experience. And then from respondent 2, we received the answer, I practice my faith in a very personal context, and that I don't believe that it can be defined as a particular corner of your life, so much as a guiding principle based upon your belief. As such, faith influences directly all of your actions as a force that guides you. So in addition to this question of, do you feel that your faith directly influences your artistic expression, we also asked the question to our respondents, has your faith ever stifled your creativity? And again, we received one very significant response, but this time it was no, but we also again received some yeses, some unsures, and then we had some by the community. I did find in diving deeper into the answers of our respondents that most of the yeses and unsures were defined by the community of faith rather than the individual's faith. So while this isn't necessarily true for all of the yeses and unsures, I felt like the significant trend is it's not the faith or spirituality of the artist that's suppressing the creativity. It's the spirituality and faith of the community that surrounds them, whether it be their family or their church. It's not allowing them to fully express themselves creatively. So now that we've kind of looked at the answers to these questions from our respondents, it's time to ask ourselves a question. So where does this connection develop? Why does this connection develop? Why are we seeing this connection in people's art and spirituality? How are we going to define this connection? And I think in order to do that, we have to ask this question. What do art and faith have in common? And it is through the answer to this question that we find out where this connection develops and why it develops. And it is through this particular question that we were able to finally draw a conclusion to our study this summer. And this conclusion is that we've determined that the connection between art and spirituality is so evident because they both satisfy a similar desire in humanity. Both art and religion allow humans the space to explain, describe, and explore all of the things that are beyond themselves and their own understanding. Art and spirituality both give humans the opportunity to express themselves on a far deeper level and provide a space for the exploration of the self. As one of our interviewers put it, they both come from the same part of the soul. Art and spirituality both serve as a vessel for us to further discover ourselves and the world around us, an understanding that we will never truly be able to achieve, but we will always need because humanity is constantly aching for explanation. So it's through this similarity that this connection between art and religion and faith and spirituality is developed, and I believe that this will be a connection that will last until the end of time. Thank you.